for your success.
It doesn't start with them and they. It starts with me. So I'm just wondering when you're gonna make it personal.
Are you really prepared to grind it out?
Everybody wants public authority, but nobody wants...
Today was cheat day.
Yeah, which was a pretty boring cheat day. This was our first week of cutting ever, so it was obviously kind of mentally tough. And we're like, oh, we're gonna crush this cheat day. And then we made chicken and crab Alfredo, and
Noodles suck.
We got one plate, and then we were like done. And then we had like a fraction of the dessert we were planning on eating, and we were just like, nope, tapped out.
That's funny. Hold on a second. There it is. That's your shake.
This is, yeah. When I finish this will be my 650th calorie for the day. And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
That's brutal.
I like the gas bowstrings shooting shirt there, buddy. Eric,
Looks good.
Good dude. He's a real good dude. Let me see if this is live right now.
I know we're live. This woman's cooking dinner while we're having a podcast, being loud.
She's all right.
Have you no respect? This is the Barebow project, okay? There's 3 people watching right now.
Maybe 4.
Not
They're
yet.
all in the
Not
podcast.
Yet. There's not 3 people watching yet.
There's 3 people in it, okay?
We've definitely had some surprising viewership now and again. We always take bets on how long it's going to take, but with you two knuckleheads, I'm sure that it'll
Nobody wants to listen to what we have to say.
No, because well, yes and no, and who cares? Oh, we have one viewer, John, so you were right.
I think that's my phone logged in still.
You don't even care. You don't even care. Oh, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, we don't. Let's put it this way. The live version of this, anyway. Oh, it's going up pretty fast, actually, John. Man, we do the live feed just so people can interact and if they want to ask questions and stuff, and because it's not many. Well, a few have started doing it. But there's those teachable moments that sometimes on the podcast people can react to them. And honestly, it's just fun. It's fun. It's fun not knowing what the hell John or anybody's going to say.
Right.
You just never know what's going to happen. Sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's not for me, but
whatever.
I'll say no more. How you doing, gentlemen? Thanks for joining us again. Congratulations on your success for indoor season, specifically Robbie with this last part with indoor nationals. So Robbie Weissinger, the 2023 USA Archery Indoor Finals champion and national champion as well. Job well done, my friend. And then Mr. John Demmer, who is also joining us as the reoccurring, I'm not sure how many times now, NFA longbow champion. Yeah, buddy, pump the fist. And I guess we do a lot of podcasts where I'll talk about how this person shoots and does that, whatever. And while there's congratulations in order, I think there's 2 things that we want to focus on with Robbie's short journey tonight. We're going to talk about his short journey within Barebow and some of the key things that we talked about it a little bit earlier. So I know he's prepared. Some of the key things that have gotten him in this relatively short amount of time, couple of years now, 3 years, 4 years, Robbie?
No, 2.
2 years active competition. I know we had videos floating around of you shooting amongst our people of you shooting right after Olympic recurve, initially. Thought that was 3 years ago, whatever. So short journey for you. And then John, playing with longbow, coming in with the wood arrows, taking the top spot in the podium. So we're gonna get into John's longbow setup and talk a little bit of like what he does different or may do different, or how just some of the nuances to longbow that we don't deal with in barebow so much, or things that he has to change. And we're gonna talk with Robbie about some of the important concepts and things that he's changed to get him from that collegiate shooter shooting Olympic to now national champion. So, gentlemen, welcome back to the Barebow Project. Robbie, let's start with you. And obviously, John, as always, chime in at any point in time if you have things that you want to elaborate on with Robbie. But Robbie, your journey has been short, but it's been extensive with all of the traveling and the amount of money that you've invested in traveling to represent our country. But you've had to make commitments to, you had to make it worth your while. And you had to make changes in your process and kind of learn some new stuff from what you knew coming out of college. We talked earlier and I asked you, let's come back with some like bullet point things that have made a huge impact or made an impact that has helped you get to where you are. And I'm talking things from maybe other Olympic recurve shooters or new barebow shooters that you feel like would help them at this moment moving into shooting barebow competitively.
So there's obviously two aspects of shooting, right? You have your mental and your physical. When I shot collegiate Olympic recurve, I feel like I was changing my form or tweaking with something, at least once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Things are constantly changing, thinking that was really the answer. And my Olympic recurve form kind of transferred over into barebow when I first started. So that would be kind of pickup number one that I would say. The form is different, not a lot different, but it's a little bit different. Something that I learned fairly quick from was to keep it like simple, really, really simple. And I was not that wasn't what I was doing for the most part. It was very complicated. There was moving pieces everywhere and it wasn't super consistent. I could still hit the middle, but I faltered in bigger moments, right? And at least myself, I strive to get to these bigger moments. It's easy to win. Well, not easy to win, but it's easier to win like a local competition or a state level competition when you don't have great form. But I've always, thanks, John. I've always wanted to be the top shooter at a national level, right? Maybe even a world. So I knew that was something that I had to change, and it was something that I tried to capitalize on as quick as I could realize it. Mm-hmm. The other part of it was mental, and this was something that I want to say it's more recent, right? In the last 8 months, I realized that like what I was doing, I had a plateau. There's a spot I really couldn't get above, and I realized that to break from that, it had to go to process. I had to be extremely process oriented. Okay, I've got bad ADHD. My brain bounces around everywhere. It's extremely hard for me to not broadcast the future or think about the past. The only way for me to truly do that is to be anchored in the moment. So a lot of this success that we saw this year came from me anchoring myself in the moment and staying in the process, along with keeping my form as simple as possible. There's less things to screw up when we get to those high value moments. And mentally, I'm a lot stronger because I have these steps that I run through in my head.
Outstanding. John, what do you think? Think he listened to you? Probably one of the first people that talked to him early on. Do you see some commonalities to the things that you maybe discussed early on?
Yeah, Robbie's been really good at just kind of coming up with a game plan and sticking to it, and just kind of build on that, like that knowledge, that foundation, and just keep trucking in the same path. He hasn't really got steered away from it, that easily, and I think that's a testament of his climb. Through just the everything he's got out of it. He's like he keeps on that path and being in the moment, and hasn't, like I said, it hasn't veered off of that path, and it's just been a solid trajectory. Hasn't hit any like extreme peaks yet, but hasn't really hit any like valleys, and it's just been a steady incline. It's been pretty good.
So with that being said, and this is probably something that John can talk to from his years of experience, Robbie, where do you go from here? You've hit some extremely, because you're not, while you are competition driven, but you are very goal oriented. And now that you've gotten to, in retrospect, although I don't think any of us think you've peaked as far as where you're going to be as a barebow archer, but for the time being you have. But I know that you want to keep going. You want to keep getting better. So where do you go from here? Are there things that that you need to work on? Do you have a plan laid out of what you're going to do in the off season? Because we're in a little bit of a lull here right now, besides regroup and, take care of your family and do the stuff that you need to do. Where do you go from that point when you've gotten to the top now? You've 2 years in on Barebow. You're the national champion, indoor finals champion, #1 qualifier for Lancaster Archery Classic. You're right there, but you still have to keep going, because we've talked about it many times. Getting to the top is easy in retrospect. It's to staying there for a long time. And I know you want to stay there. Where do you go from here?
So there's two things to think about when we talk about goals, right? There are outcome goals, right? Those are people think about the most. I want to win a national championship. I want to make a US team. I want to make USAT. I want to make the cut at Lancaster. I want to make the shoot down at Lancaster. I want to make the top 8 finals, right? Things that really aren't in your control, things that you would like to achieve, but they're not, in all reality, they're not in your control. And there's process oriented goals. And this is what I'm shifting to. Okay. In terms of outcome oriented goals, I don't really know what else to do, right? Like you and I talked on the phones, like, you know what? I'm going to gun for the outdoor world record, right? That's an outcome oriented goal. That'd be awesome to do, right? But that shouldn't be my focus going forward. In terms of making US teams, I only really want to try for the ones that I can get funded, because I'm not made of money. Nobody is. But in terms of process oriented goals, right? There's things that I need to tweak with my form to change. There were things that were glaringly obvious that need changed, in my opinion, throughout indoor season, but I just stuck with it. There's mental aspects of it, right? I know I talked about how I was extremely process oriented, and that it kind of had, I don't want to say like a steady decline, but it started really, really strong at Iowa Pro-Am, and then Lancaster. Indoor Nationals was really good. And obviously there's external factors too, but at NFA indoor and the finals, that focus really was not as sharp as it had been. If the Robbie that shot Lancaster shot NFAA, it might have been different.
Right.
Same with the indoor finals, right? Like it was kind of a messy match, though they were all messy matches from everybody. But the control for me was not really there as much as I had been. So going forward, making a few form changes. I do a goofy thing with my hook, and John tried to help me with that. And that's address number 1, because in my process, I've slowed down my shot timing. And during those finals matches, this bottom finger wanted to just pop off completely because of how hot it was in that room. So that made me speed up my process and led to poor shooting. So that's something that needs changed for sure. The way I set up, I feel is different than what it used to be, not as strong. I don't feel like I'm super engaged in my back. So I'm going to have to make some minor tweaks there to get that where it's supposed to be. And mentally, I just need to sharpen that and make it second nature to where it doesn't matter what's going on. I don't have to put in as much effort to get the same result on the shooting line. And I'm sure John can speak to that as well. You know, when you're making a change to your mental process, it's really hard to hammer it in for the first amount of time, but the more you do it, the more it's second nature. John probably doesn't have to think about it much anymore when he does the checklist in his head.
Yeah.
Because it's so
John has a very impressive ability to make changes on the fly though, and stick to those changes pretty well.
Mhm.
Like I personally cannot do that. I'm just not that good, period.
Right.
It is what it is. But like John definitely, I've watched him do it. I've watched him just make change, like, and you see it, there's probably pictures floating around of him in that mindset where he's like, and he makes that face on the line, you know, the wheels are turning. Why did that go there? And I just made this change. But so John, you worked with Robbie a little bit, I assume, at NFA. You guys were messing around with the release thing?
A little bit, but not a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
Because it was end of day one, I think, something like that. So
It was
mid tournament.
I'll have to pull some video because I know when he sent me his slow motion video and I put it together, I literally made the video and tried to mask that section where you do that because we talked about it. We're like, I don't necessarily want people to see that and then think that they should do it, because I knew it was something that you have always had and knew you had and wanted to work on it. So I don't know if it's apparent in there or not, but is that a similar approach, John, that you've taken in your career, or it just took like so much trial and error to get to the point where you found this is the way I shoot. I can change this, and this if I need to, but is it the same process you've taken? Like you had years that you would work on a specific thing, or?
Yeah, it changes from, sometimes shoot to shoot, but usually like maybe more like month to month. I'll just refocus on what the weakest part of that is at that moment and try to overemphasize it and get that stronger. But the foundation, it took a long time to build up. Most of it was like trial and error, like what I could score the most points with, my shooting style. And that foundation took a long time, because I got to the point where, like Robbie, I got into like the 540s on the shooting line. But we always want more, and I had to seek a different shooting style or different attributes in my form to see where I could progress what was bleeding points more than the others. And I would just focus on that and try to fix that first, while trying to keep all the other aspects of the shot together.
Mm-hmm.
So that also made my mental game a little bit stronger, because I could make those changes and stick with those changes, as long as the tail end of my shot maintain that sharp focus of not like getting that like squirrel thought in the back of my head and then just like totally obliterate one into the 1 or a 0.
I guess that has carried over to longbow. I mean, you shot longbow last year. How many years have you shot longbow at NFA? Was it just this past 2 years, or?
Yeah, just past these 2 years. Every once in a while you need to change up, or you get some extra motivation that drives you to do other things, and
Yeah, but
such things happen.
Such things do happen. We've seen it happen. Well, I guess you look at your shot process with Barebow versus longbow, besides, I guess, the necessity, like the rules of the class and the way you must shoot. What are things that you change going from Barebow to longbow that help you stay as consistent as you are and to win those 2 championships now 2 years in a row?
It's so shooting longbow for me is not a very easy transition, and it shows in my scores because sometimes they're way up and way down. But when I'm in the groove with it, it could be quite good, I guess. Shot some 540s, 550s on the multicolor target in practice, and blasted one out at target or indoor nats one year, mid 540s and upper 530s, which was really good.
That. You shot both that year, right?
I did. I shot both. And the shot is most of it's kind of similar, but there are like 3 different aspects of it that's quite different. I have to tame the longbow down more so than the barebow. Barebow, I shoot like a nice loose grip. Longbow, I'm grabbing a little bit, but it's a slight grab. It's not like a real hard grab. I need to like it does unfortunately cause some tension in the arm by grabbing the bow.
Right.
So it's going to get a little bit more tension in the backside too.
Right.
But if I could keep it very minimal, then this usually is very minimal on the back end. And when those 2 things are working together, it's quite good. But if I shoot with a wrist sling or a finger sling or whatever with my longbow, I don't think I can control that bow and its I wouldn't even say micro movements, because it has quite a bit more movement than the barebow, because the barebow you can wait and get the reaction the way you want it. The longbow is not always the case. I think the longbow I shot this weekend last weekend was like 2.5 pounds. So there's not a lot of weight in the bow to kind of tame it down. So I got to tame it more with my hand, so that bow keeps going steady. So that aspect is way different than the barebow. And so like by gripping it, this thing isn't as dynamic. Not that I have a super dynamic shot to begin with,
right.
but this is tamed down a lot more because this is I'm like taming the bow down with this hand.
So is it more toward, I don't want to say static, but is it more toward a static release, or you're just really forcing yourself to stay, and that's
it's I would say it's halfway between static and my normal barebow release.
Got you.
It's like if I could keep it in that, it's pretty good. If I get static with the longbow, it gets really, really ugly pretty quick. Like if I'm static with the barebow, more static, I would say I start shooting a lot of 8s. With the barebow or with the longbow, I'm more into like the 6s. Like it gets pretty ugly pretty fast. Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, that's good. And you shot you shoot wood arrows. You shot wood arrows this weekend, or the 2
yeah. The one time I shot USA indoor nats, I had to shoot wood arrow. The first time I shot the NFAA, I shot aluminums last year, and then this year went with an all wood bow and wood arrow this year.
That's not a class requirement though, correct, for the NFAA?
That's not a requirement. I could shoot carbons or aluminums, no big deal.
Do you feel like you gave up points, even though I know you won and whatnot? But do you feel like you gave up points if you had to guess?
It's tough to say. I don't think so. The first day probably, but I went in with a poor choice with my wood arrows and the point weight that I chose. And the crappy thing is, like, I was on like the 3rd end, and I sometimes you just know you made a mistake, and then you just try to fight through the rest of the day, living with that mistake that you made. Right. So after that, I changed things up, went with a much heavier point. Like I shot indoor nats for USA like 4 years ago, and that made a lot bigger of a difference, because now I can get away with not being spined correctly and just driving a point towards its destination rather than trying to get the arrow to steer the point. My point is pulling the arrow to the end game. And groups tightened up quite a bit.
It's an interesting way to put it. What bow did you shoot this year, longbow wise?
I shot the what was it? Timber Point oh shoot, Timmy's gonna Hydra,
Oh.
an all wood Hydra made out of Ipe. Not the heaviest bow for sure, because it was all wood. There was no G10 or dark timber or whatever in it.
Yeah.
I think I gave up points more so that way than I did with the arrow. Just because the Medusa is pushing 4 pounds, not quite 4 pounds.
Right.
That one was a much tamer, more pleasurable bow to shoot. Just because I think the movements post shot were a lot smaller than the lightweight Hydra. Now, Santo has a Hydra made out of like the dark timber and whatnot, and that thing is quite stout. That thing
Santo
is
has more
4
longbows
pounds.
than anybody I know.
Yeah, his is like 4.5 pounds, something like that. His Hydra.
Nice. He's got some
That
beautiful pieces of equipment.
he
That guy.
does.
Oh my gosh. So
He
jealous.
his Medusa, his regular Medusa is like 5.5 pounds.
That's awesome.
mine is 4 pounds. I couldn't believe how heavy his was.
That's amazing. Hey, Robbie, while we're on the equipment discussion, you switched it up a little bit as well. What do you shot I think I see it there behind you. Is that your bow behind you?
Yeah. So this is the
That-
XD. I didn't shoot the XD for this.
Okay.
I shot my pink Exceed.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, we talked about that. All right. Yeah.
So I just
So-
didn't have a lot of time behind this bow.
Yeah. Well, it does look nice though. It's all black, huh?
Yeah.
Pretty badass, dude. I'm not gonna lie. And the axial limbs. Let's get a good look at those axial limbs.
Yeah. They're pretty sweet, I gotta say.
They are pretty nice.
Have you shot any with it, like a decent amount yet?
Not really. I didn't shoot. I haven't shot since I got home. But I mean, when I shot, it was more pleasurable to shoot than the Exceed. My Exceed, for whatever reason, sounds like a gunshot going off, but it hits the middle, and that's the end goal. Paper does not duck string.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
think when you get time behind that bow and you really get a feeling for it, you're gonna see an improvement for sure. But it's gonna take time.
yeah, absolutely. And then
Yeah.
I've got the ramrod weights on here.
Yep. That the ones in the riser there. Can you show them close up if you don't mind?
Yeah. So these, the ones I have them sandwiched in here. These are 4 stainless stack. So I got 16 here. On the front, I've got a 4-ounce tungsten dampener. So it's got powdered tungsten in there that dampens it. Then I've got 16 ounces of tungsten here.
Nice.
Tungsten is roughly half the size of stainless. So this stack here, this section is about the size of an 8-ounce stack of stainless. So I've got 20 ounces out the front on this, and this is the exact length as the 26-ounce brass Yost weight.
Got it.
Exact distance away from the riser. And then there's internal pocket weights too.
Then that's from Ramrod as well.
Yeah.
The pocket weights.
So this is an alternative to the ones that Hoyt brings or gives with the set. This is 3.5 ounces of solid tungsten. The Exceed has the option for a 3-ounce powder tungsten. The Exceed got a little deeper pocket in there just off of its design, but I have them in both the upper and the lower. I haven't shot it a whole bunch. I do like having it in the upper and the lower. It distributes the weight away from the hand and feels really nice. It holds good at full draw.
And you have one on that lower limb.
Yes, I have another 4-ounce powder tungsten on the bottom. So we'll see. This is more weight than I generally run. With the 27-inch Exceed, I really customized that hammer weight.
Yeah.
I took out the bottom pocket holder, the bottom thing that you put the screws in, and then it's 2 aluminum side plates. So that comes out to like 37 ounces. And that's the only weight I have on that bow.
Could we just call him the Tim Gillingham of extra weights everywhere on the riser?
This is just an experiment.
Except for a much worse shooting Tim
I
Gillingham.
mean, I've been talking with Gillingham, and I know he's shooting some barebow right now. That freaking guy is shooting a 31-inch Gilo GT, and I'm just waiting. I'm gonna get a picture one of these days.
That's
And
gonna look
there's
like
gonna
a
be all
porcupine.
kinds of weights and this, guaranteed, because that dude's brain just constantly is thinking about what list, and he's gonna show up. He said he told me person to person. Go ahead.
He's gonna have like $500 worth of weight sticking out everywhere on the riser.
Guaranteed. It's gonna be everywhere. It'll be like the ring. We'll actually have to go like this just to get it all the way up. All the way up the riser.
It's a cylinder.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's a cylinder. Yeah. Shout out to the Rapacho boys. But anyway,
my mindset with the weights, it's just something you got to play with. It's the reaction that you're looking for, not necessarily the amount of weight.
Yeah.
I know George Riles does a test. At least I think he does a test. I've been told he does, where they take off all the stabilizers on their compounds and do without it, where they take off their stabilizers, because weight is simply a Band-Aid to form issues, right?
Sure. Yep.
At the end of the day, that at its most basic level, that's what I believe, whether it's right or wrong. But if you can just get the reaction of the bow how you want it at the lowest amount of weight, so you can shoot it and be as efficient as possible, that's kind of my goal with weight at the end of the day, and having it fit through the riser.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Ramrod Archery though for putting their hat in the ring of barebow and bringing you and Maddie, and I don't know if anybody else on, and really showing support for barebow. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I know it's only weights right now, but who knows? They've been making amazing stabilizers and stuff for a very long time. So, they see the value of the barebow market is becoming more apparent, and so shout out to those guys for sure.
Could we do a circle back to the weights?
Yeah,
Robbie said something about trying to shoot the lightest you can. Just to let people know that you don't have to have weights. Even if your bow doesn't come off as clean as, aesthetically as clean as desirable for some. I've shot, like when I got hurt probably about 6 years ago now, I couldn't shoot mass. Like I literally couldn't stick a weight on my bow, and I shot a naked riser. The only thing on it was a rest and a plunger. And I went down to Eric's and Tracy's club. We did a field seminar down there the one year, and I shot a full round of a marked distance field and shot in the 350s with no weights on my bow. And every time I shot, that bow just kicked backwards pretty hard, but you could still shoot really well without weights. So don't necessarily feel like you always have to load up super heavy like some of the other people there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's not a measuring contest, right? It's a contest of who hits the middle the most. So whatever you can get.
Then why is yours so long in front of your bow?
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it's set up right now. I have
keep it family oriented, John.
He's touching the edge of the ring. I know it.
I don't own a ring, but
it's the equivalent of like a big Ford diesel jacked up with 35s. Is that what we're saying?
That's right.
Robbie's trying to bottom out the ring.
That's right. That's right. Won't happen, but we can try. One thing with the XD that I noticed, if you look at this spot in particular, this part of the riser is a lot slimmer, so that it gives you the ability to add more on the front or in this back pocket. Thanks, John. I'm just saying I looked at the bow side by side because I was building this for a backup for the finals. And I'm like, I don't know if this is going to fit through the ring. And I just kind of held it side by side. This riser is a lot slimmer than the Exceed.
The 27 Exceed. The 25 is definitely pretty slim. But I noticed when I shot the 27, I had to cut down the front weight a lot, like the length of the front weight.
Right.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Funny stuff though.
There's so much work with that right now.
Nothing that can come out of
the way the Robbie was holding the bow and locations of his nice shiny feet.
Everybody who's watching, we were actually up in views. We're gonna let that one go. Oh my gosh. Anyway, listen, you don't compensate. Even we had some questions. I think somebody mentioned something about compensating for something. It is what it is. It's part of the game, right?
That's right.
You gotta shoot. You gotta do what you gotta do. It is what it is. But hey, so moving forward, we have some questions. All right, before we get too far off track and we make fun of each other some more. We have some stuff going on in the comments. So I'm gonna read through some of them. This is all why. Here's a funny one. Santos says, as we're ending the weighted barebow discussion and compensating for something, Santos says, this is why I shoot longbow. I guess Santos trying to say that, his light bow, well, he's got a super heavy longbow, but his lighter bows are representation for something. I guess that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah, like I said, his Medusa probably outweighs at least a quarter of the people's barebow, if not half of the people's mass of the barebows.
I bet it's a hell of a shooter though.
Oh, dude, it's a dream to shoot. It thumps.
There is a question, a pretty good one at that, from a Tristan Jones. So not necessarily related to what we're talking to tonight. I'm trying to get my dad, early 70s, into archery. Hold on, my comments just moved around. And he's a firearms guy. Any tips? If you had to give him so I'm guessing this older lad shoots no archery whatsoever. If you Rob, you work in a bow shop. If a guy was coming in, we're talking barebow related stuff, obviously. Mm-hmm. What would you do with it? New, older guy, shot firearms. What would be the first crack? If you had to you had all the choice from any Olympic recurve, ILF setup, whatever, on the shelf. What do you think what's the direction you would go?
So I'd try to, if we were to, because we got a longbow guy here. If we were to gauge interest, I would want to gauge interest with the guy. Like, what does he want to do? Does he want to compete? Does he want to shoot animals? Does he want to shoot foam? What's kind of the mission? If he wanted to shoot competition barebow, I would get him in, depending on how big of a person he is, like height wise. I would find a light poundage barebow that would fit him. Being 70, and having no archery experience, I doubt anything over 30 pounds would be
that's a good
beneficial to him. And I would just get him to compete in something that he enjoyed doing. Okay. Because some people hate indoor spots. It's maddening, right? Some people don't like being outside and shooting 3D. Some people can't hit the target at 50 meters and therefore it's unenjoyable. So find a way of competition or just practicing that's enjoyable to him.
Yeah. Get into maybe an inexpensive option up front.
Yep, absolutely. And there's lots of inexpensive options. I helped a guy earlier this week get into something. I think he bought a Samick Sage, but it doesn't take anything fancy. I know we all have fancy stuff and we show it off and that's what we're supposed to do, but it really takes nothing expensive. Brian Way, I remember my first barebow tournament, beat the brakes off me with a bow that was probably $300 total. like beat the brakes off of me and
Yeah.
everybody out there.
That dude's a shooter though.
Yeah.
He can shoot just about anything.
Right.
John, would you agree? Same. Keep the poundage down.
So I'll do it from like a more equipment perspective. If he wants to shoot a metal bow, or if he wants to shoot a wood bow. If he wants to shoot a wood bow, start out with a Sage, super cheap. If he wants to shoot a metal bow, my suggestion for the average person, like average being height, age, motivation, I would get a used middle of line riser. I emphasize used because that used middle of the line riser, you should be able to resell it same price you paid for it if you got a halfway decent deal. And then I would go cheap limbs, like the cheapest, almost the cheapest you can get, make maybe $100 to $150 limbs, super light poundage. Like Robbie said, it all depends on the person. That super light poundage could be 20 pounds, it could be 30 pounds. If you're pretty athletic build, I would say 30 pounds. If you're not, I would say more towards the like mid 20s. And definitely I would emphasize super cheap on the limbs, because chances are if you like it, you're going to move out of them pretty quick. If you don't like it, you're only like one and a half bills into it.
Yep. That's a good point. So options for those limbs would be something like SF Archery. Sebastian
There's a lot.
makes it inexpensive. Cartel, Galaxy,
like the
Galaxy
bronze
Gold
or whatever.
limb, and the Galaxy Black Star limb. Black Star is a little bit more expensive, but like those limbs are like, they're legit. They're not bad. They do the job. You might not get a lot of longevity out of them. You might only get, a couple of years or whatever, but like initially, like those limbs could do very, very well. Think they're ballpark $150. I think the Black Star ones might be $250 or something like that. That again, and risers, John, that's a good point. There's either a previous couple of years, like if you could find a flagship riser that was solid but 4 or 5 years old, you can get a really good riser that's still going to sell. That's one thing with Barebow people though. Barebow people, more so I think than Olympic people, I don't know, maybe not, they seem to keep their stuff. Like you'll find stuff for sale out there. You'll see like CD risers floating around, but people are moving around. Maybe they're moving into a longer one or something. Might see some exceeds floating around, but the Hoyt Arcos is a good middle of the road option to shoot. You can shoot outstanding scores with that bow. And of course, get yourself a Yoast tab. Eric, Tracy, support those amazing people. Get yourself
you gotta support Eric in his rock hopping injuries.
Yeah, right, exactly. I saw that video and I was like, geez, he didn't learn any lessons. He's right back on the pony.
His first, you can't say that yet until he pops his first wheelie and tries to hop his first rock. Then he didn't learn any lessons.
Yeah, you're right. Hey man, at least he's getting after it. That's okay. That's okay. He's young at heart, that lad. But yeah, support those guys. Go get yourself a pro tab. I don't know. Do you use the brass one, Robbie? I use the brass ones. John,
I use the brass one, but like if we're talking cost effectiveness for a new person, they make plastic ones that are fairly inexpensive too. I think they're like around $30.
Yep.
For the plastic ones aren't that bad, really, because like if you think about it, you don't need that hard plate. The only thing you have to be careful on the plastic is how hard you push that bolt, that screw in. But if you're good with that, the plastic's fine.
Or you just get the standard. I actually have one hanging here, aluminum pro tab.
Yeah.
John, this is what you actually use most of the time, right? Didn't yours aluminum?
No, I got brass.
Brass too?
I don't think there's that. I don't think there's any difference in performance, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't mind brass. Because I know I could glue my sight tape on it,
Right.
and I could peel it off. And if I nick the brass with a blade, guess what? It's still brass underneath. The anodized aluminum, if I try to scrape it, sometimes, I'll get it underneath the anodized, and then it just turns into shiny aluminum. But with the brass,
Right.
I cut through the brass and I still have brass.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point, actually. You start getting underneath the anodized, and you get a line in there or something. A judge, who knows, they could like, oh, you got a line there and it's too long, make a big deal about it. But no, that's good. I don't see any more questions. Just Tristan did respond. He said, yeah, he's a heck of a shot with a rifle, mostly wants to hunt potentially. I just want to get him into the sport, something he and I can do together. That to me sounds like the potential for just a salmon stage.
If he wants to hunt, yeah, get a wood, get something. I would start there's so many halfway decent cheap wood handles, and even if you just do like a single piece like recurve wooden, like you're gonna really appreciate the wood when you hunt over the metal, because that wood, especially if you hunt in colder weather, that wood stays nice and warm. That metal gets extremely cold, and your hands will start freezing after a while if you're walking around carrying that thing.
Yep. Maybe. And I know buying that Black Widow, man, I love that wood bow. I think shoots so well, but I wouldn't go out spending, I think those things are retail somewhere in $1,400-$1,600 new. I think, I don't even know, they're expensive, but those wood bows are worth getting after for sure. I think that's it, man. That's all we got, fellas. I think it was good stuff. Robbie, John, stick around. Guys, if you have any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we're going to go offline.
I don't think they're going to miss us too much.
Well, Stowe Archery Club. That's got to be either Dennis or Brian Farrell. I don't know. Guessing it's Brian. He says, hey, guys, best 50-meter barebow setup. How about instead of going with best, let's just change that to current plans for a 50-meter barebow setup for you two. Let's talk. Let's go from there. But obviously, bow wise, I think you're both in the same department as far as the XD. Maybe John may still play with some other stuff. Let's talk arrows, length, and weight, or approximate at least. John, I could probably guess yours, but Robbie, I don't know what you got going on there. Bow weight as well, and spot.
So I just built these today. These are Victory Vaps. 800's fine. I'm looking at somewhere between 41 and 43 pounds of draw weight. This was a setup that worked last year. I was waiting for some arrows, and I found 800 fine Vaps laying around, and they worked beautifully.
Define worked.
They hit the middle. They hit the middle.
Sometimes
they shot 10. But bite or not,
I think they only worked during the team rounds, and that was it.
Well, it beat you. I think I remember shooting at 10 a shoot off against you too, John.
Not outdoors. Maybe in the team stuff. Bugger.
In the team stuff, it did. Individual. I got set points on you though. That's more than a lot of people can say.
I can't say about it, other than the podium for the team. I got team podium too, but I got lucky. Maggie carried me on that one.
I was gonna say thank you, Maggie.
Actually, no, that's not true, because the match against you, we whooped you pretty good. I don't want to hear it. That was the best archery I shot all weekend. It was against you. Anyway,
back to the point.
Moving on.
So
length, what veins? Spider veins?
They're spider veins. These are the compound ones. Invictus.
Okay.
So they're a shield cut, and they're a little bit stiffer than the normal spider. I played around with these. I think I shot these at the 3D Worlds. I don't remember. It's either these or the standard spider veins. But I like the stiffness because I feel if the vein
Hey, you
is,
like what you don't get, so you know whatever. Just like
I
the
feel like
earlier conversation.
if the vein doesn't have enough strength behind it when we do these really steep crawls, this has nothing to do with 50 meters. In my head, if the vein's kind of like not strong enough, it won't be as forgiving on super short crawls when our arrows are doing goofy things.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Sort of. So when I shot field, some of my best groups on a single crawl were what's the vein that most of the Koreans use?
Spin wing.
Spin wings.
It's literally
We're with spin wings, but when I
Yeah.
shot field, they were horrible when I was crawling. Like they were the best at a single distance at times, but they were the worst every time on like the bigger crawls. Or like if I tuned it for 30, they were the worst vein I shot for 50. They were the worst vein I shot for 5, 10, 15. But for 30, they were one of the best. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like you need something a little bit stiffer that can hold that can hold its profile.
So for like what John was saying, for a single distance like 50 meter, I don't know how much of a difference it would make. You could probably shoot any spin wing and it would be good. But for people like John and I that play in multiple different games, I build an arrow that I can play any game with.
Yeah.
When it comes to outdoor stuff, especially with last year having to be ready for 50 meter field and 3D all within the span of a month. I just stuck with one arrow, and this was a very similar build. So I also have shot the XS wings. I know that's what John shot, the 70 millimeter XS wings. I shot those for 50 meter. I like those. I've shot standard spider veins. I like those. And then I've shot these. So it's hard to go wrong with the single distance stuff. Just depending on what games you want to play with this. If you're getting ready for just 50 meter, I don't think it matters as much for the veins. Yeah, just making sure that you get the point on or having a short crawl.
Right. What spine? 800.
These are 800s.
And what point weight?
100s.
So 800 spine, 100 point weight. What's your fingers? What's your weight on your fingers?
Last year it was 43.
What do you think it's going to be this year?
41 to 43. I would like to be
try to stay there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really mind the weight. I shot 40 and a half, 41 for all of indoor season, mainly because I didn't have limbs that went lighter, but it works. So it's not like a super hard transition to go up a couple pounds and draw weight.
Well, you're a young, buff man. You can handle it. John, how about you as we roll into after you get ready for gardening season and you get into trout season, and like a week before the first probably local feed that you can get to, if you get to any.
Well, if it all depends if any sort of local runs feed is.
No pressure there. Anyway, moving on. So what do you think you're going to roll out with initially? Because like,
I'm probably going to throw the Axia in XDs. I will probably set up my old Epic as like a standard and see, like, go off of scores off of that, and get the XD to shoot a little bit better if I can, or if I could get it to shoot the same. I would ideally like to shoot like 40 pounds. I don't know if I have anything on my face that could reach 40 or reach 50 meters with 40 pounds. I'm going to try. And if it doesn't, then I'll just go back to the standard 42 pounds, 700 spine nano, or if I can get the X10 550s to shoot well and get point on, I'll run that probably. Usually run 110 grains up front. Sometimes it's 100, sometimes it's 120, but usually 110 works pretty well for me. Yeah, that's about it. I'll shoot the 70. I'll probably shoot the 70 millimeter XS wings again. If I'll probably pull out the 60 XS highs if I don't have any clearance issues, I'll shoot those. I'd rather shoot those. But if I keep nipping the tip of the 60s, then I'll shoot the 70s. And I will also have a very windy backup setup for my arrows as well, which I will run the 60 low profile XS wings, and then I will I'll just trim from the back end point of the vane all the way right straight down to the front, making a very skinny, like really skinny vane if we ever run into some really high wind stuff.
Yeah, you've talked about that in previous episodes where I'll have to find it and maybe I'll post it or post it to the comments. But yeah, we talked about that specifically.
Yeah, that adjustment, and that's what, like, I'm always willing to adjust on the fly. Like, I knew we were coming into some really strong wind, and I did test these at home, and they grouped really, really well. They didn't group as well as my 60 highs, but they grouped really close. And when I saw we were getting 30-mile-an-hour consistent winds the next day, I switched to them in a heartbeat because I knew they weren't going to drift nearly as bad.
Yeah.
That was one of the rare things that I made a smart decision on.
So John,
go ahead. Go ahead, Robbie. Sorry.
What stops you from using a smaller vane for 50 meter? Right, because they make. I'm sorry, I'm getting text messages in. How they make a 40 millimeter, a 50 millimeter.
Too high. To the height, because my 60 lows, when I trimmed them the way I trimmed them, there was an old boning vane. Boy, I wish I remembered the name of that one. They were long and skinny, like they were super low profile. They were only like a quarter inch. The 40 highs, I have 40s, I have 50s, I've shot them in the past. But the lower profile, the way I cut those 60s down, or a much smaller surface area than the 40s and 50s. And if I trim the 40s, I don't think I would be nearly as happy. I wanted the low profile to cut through the wind, because we had like seriously strong side winds, and that was a good. It seemed for me it had enough surface area to get some steering, but also not a lot where that side wind would just catch the big vanes and just keep pushing them over. That's why I like the 60 highs. If I have no clearance issue, I get a nice higher profile and I can get a lot more steering on it. But if we have like heavy winds, it's not as good because it grabs more air, and that wind will influence the impact quite a bit.
Yeah. There's also the question, just a follow-up question on the arrow stuff, full length and arrow total weight. Maybe you can just give an approximate, but full length, or you cutting?
No, they're cut. They're like, I think they're just under 29 carbon to carbon. I've got pins in the back with pin knock. That makes them about 29 and a quarter from the throat of the knock to the carbon.
Gotcha.
And then total arrow weight. It's
300 some.
It's
not even
280 maybe.
280.
Yeah. Mine is usually 300 to 310 with the nanos, 29 inches knocked to carbon, usually 29 and a half.
Good.
X10s, who knows? I might be shooting right on the plunger to get point on. Who knows? They're quite a bit heavier.
I know Matty has never had issues. He's always shot X10s.
Yeah, but I don't want to shoot Matty scores. Boom.
Oh man.
You're making fun of Cripple right now. That's not very nice of you.
Hey, no, everybody's fair game.
Well, to be fair, you were John. You were crippled not that long ago. So
that's right.
You were crippled not that long ago. I'm preparing to be crippled here in
I
a month. So
I think the first comment when I saw him was, "Are you bulking too? Just like me?"
Yeah, but I'm bulking that
He's
spare
like,
tire, man.
he's like,
It's
"I
like
haven't been
like
on my couch for weeks."
I was working that tractor trailer tire around my belly.
That's right.
hey, dad bods are cool. That's what they say. Except you're not a dad, so.
Thank God.
Yeah. Christian
I'm
says he has a photo of a
I'm
crippled
somebody's
Demmer.
daddy. Shut up.
Yeah.
Well, what did Christian say?
Christian said, I got a photo of a crippled Demmer. I got video of a crippled Demmer, but we won't. That's not appropriate for the airways. That stays private forever.
Hey, that was a Valentine's Day gift. Leave it alone. Don't bring it up.
All right, nobody. Christian, you can send that to me though. You can send that to me. All right, guys. Well, I think we more than covered it all. I appreciate you taking your time out and putting all that information out there. Robbie, where can say it every time? Where can people follow you in your archery journey?
So I have an Instagram and a Facebook. That's about it. My Facebook's my name, Robbie Weissinger. Go ahead and follow me if you want. Be a friend. I like friends. And then Instagram, I think it's Robbie Hood 10X. Such a clever name.
It's something.
It is something.
It's something. But you're doing good things, man. So go follow Robbie Hood. And of course we always have JD3. You can find him. He's just on Demmer on Instagram.
Yeah, also the Johnny on Grinder. So feel free to follow that.
Check out his OnlyFans for the best feet pics in all of archery.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he pays
Farmers
for
only as well. Farmers only as well.
Gardeners
only. GF or GO, I guess it would be. Oh man. Gardeners only.
Yeah, you can follow my exploits on the gardening. We'll start posting here pretty soon.
That's what you're doing today, right?
Yeah. Got 3/4 of the greenhouses done. So the goal is to get it pretty much both of them done for Easter. So when my sister comes over and visits, she can help me hang poly.
So explain. I mean, we're probably done archery talk right now, so you can move on if you want, but we're gonna just leave it go because this guy's like a gardening fool. What do you mean greenhouses? Like, what do you actually build? Do you build them out and then let everything grow early, or what?
So yeah, I made it like a square. Well, they're actually rectangles. Posts on the corners, and then kind of did like almost like barn stall running boards across. Sealed the other ends up and hung cattle panels up and did like a big hoop house type deal.
Yep.
And then we're gonna hang poly, like a 6 mil poly over top of it, wrap it tight, and then seal it up with some like wood laths. And the sides, I'm gonna have it where the sides I can roll them up, like when it gets hot, I can lift them up 3 feet off the ground and get some air under there so they don't none of the plants overheat in the midsummer. If it's anything like last summer, I'll probably I'll only have them lifted up for maybe 2 months because I would like the interior of that to get like 75, 80 every day, and then at night close them up because we get some really cold summer days. Like we'll get them in the 40s, and you get that in the 40s, the tomato plants kind of like they'll still grow, but they'll grow really slow. And same thing with the pepper plants. Usually my pepper plants and tomato plants don't really do well until August. But if I can speed that up like a month and a half, then we'll have some nice fruit for Etar.
Oh, nice. Is this
yes,
a new
fruit.
endeavor?
I said fruit because technically a tomato is a fruit. Whatever.
Your salsa's fucking to die for. Is this a new endeavor though? The greenhouse? Is this like a new thing or?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the first time this year. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why it's starting from scratch, and it's taking a little bit of time.
Got you. All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for all the info, the gardening info from Mr. John Demmer. Gentlemen, you have a wonderful night. Thanks for coming on once again. Everyone, Barebow Project episode is over.
I want to see Robbie flex one more time.
Well, we're gonna stop recording and stop going live, and then we'll get into the real conversation. Maddie, you're not invited. All right. You guys hang out for a second.
Maddie can get seconds.
We just ended on stop live. We just stopped the live feed and ended on that. That's had to be who's texting you during the
Yes, he was